All right. Mr. Yancey, are you there? Okay, District 3, Donald Brooks, 9258 Everona Road, Unionville, Virginia.
District 4, Julie Sailmaker, 34104 Indiantown Road, Locust Grove, Virginia.
Jim Hutchison, District 5, 525 Harrison, Locust Grove, Virginia.
Thank you. I think we have our attorney, our supervisor, and the only person that appears to be missing are Mrs. Thornton, who will sign on in a minute, and Mr. Yancey, we hope also. This meeting will be conducted remotely, and there will be no physical public access during this meeting. There will be no opportunity for public comment. This meeting has been held electronically pursuant to and in compliance with the continuity of government ordinance or an ordinance to effectuate change in certain deadlines and to modify public meeting and public hearing practices and procedures to address continuity of operations associated with COVID-19 pandemic. It was adopted April the 28th, 2020 by the Orange County Board of Supervisors in accordance with the Code of Virginia 15.2-1413. This meeting is accessible by YouTube, www.youtube.com/channel/UCNL EM LGR XY DFK CP18JOQ. We have determined that we do have a quorum. We will turn the meeting over to Mr. Lansing, our attorney, to help us select a chairman for the ongoing year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The task before the commission now is to appoint a chairman and then a vice chairman. After the appointment of a chairman, the chairman will then appoint the secretary. So the commission will not be appointing the secretary directly. That will just be something the chairman will do. So with that said, I will open the floor for nominations for a chairman of the Planning Commission.
Well, I guess I'll start and nominate Jason.
All right, Jason Capel has been nominated. Are there any other nominations?
Yes, I nominate Donald Brooks.
Is, not to interrupt you, but is that George Yancey?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay.
All right, Jason Capel and Donald Brooks have both been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Okay, Mr. Capel, do you accept the nomination for chair?
No, I don't.
All right, Mr. Brooks, do you accept the nomination for chair?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I will solicit a vote to close nominations for chair unless there are any other nominations. Or I will set rather a motion. Is there a motion to close the nominations?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 So what we'll next need to do is hold a roll call vote on the nomination of Mr. Brooks for chair, unless there wants to be unless anyone wants to have any discussion.
Just really quick, I'd like to thank Jim for the nomination. I really do appreciate it, Jim. So thank you.
Well, we wanted Gordonsville well represented.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
All right, I will solicit a motion to proceed straight to the roll call.
I make that motion.
Also move.
I'll second.
Okay. In that case, well, actually, I'll It's a roll call, so I'll call each member's name. Mr. Capel, how do you vote on the nomination of Mr. Brooks as chairman?
Aye.
Ms. Zailmaker, I know I keep mispronouncing your name. I apologize.
That was fine.
How do you vote on the nomination of Mr. Brooks for chair?
Aye.
Mr. Hutchinson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Yancey, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Mr. Brooks, how do you vote on your nomination as chair?
Aye.
All right. Donald Brooks remains chairman of the Planning Commission for an additional term. Mr. Chairman, would you take back the reins of the meeting?
Let's go through the vice chair first. Then you
Okay.
give it back to me, then I'll make the appointment.
Sure. Would you make the appointment for secretary? Oh, well,
Yes,
you
I
want to go
will.
straight to vice chair? Okay,
Go straight to vice chair.
that sounds fine. All right, I will solicit a nomination for vice chair. We have any?
I nominate Jason Capel.
All right, Jason Capel is nominated. Mr. Capel, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are there any
you,
other
Chairman Brooks.
nominations for vice chair?
I make a motion, we close the nominations.
All right.
I'll second it.
All in favor of closing nominations for vice chair, say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Jason Capel is our only nominee for vice chair, but we still have to have a roll call vote. I will solicit a motion, unless there wants to be any discussion, to proceed straight to the vote. Is there a motion to proceed straight to the vote?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, Mr. Capel, how do you vote on your nomination as vice chair?
That's really lousy to have me go first, Eric. But you could pick anyone you wanted, but I'll vote aye.
You're on the top left of my screen, so you get to go first, regardless.
That's the German coming out in you, being all orderly.
That's right.
Oh,
All right, to be decent, I'll go with Mr. Brooks first. Mr. Brooks, how do you vote on Jason's nomination as vice?
I vote aye.
Ms. Zailmaker, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Hutchinson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Yancey, how do you vote?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Capel, how do you vote?
I already voted. I'm
You
not
get two
voting twice.
votes.
No, my vote is recorded, Mr. Lansing.
I missed that. I thought you had.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll vote aye. I'll
Okay.
do it twice.
All right.
It'll be on film. I'm sure I'll get comments about it.
Okay. All right. Mr. Brooks, I turn the meeting back over to you as chair to appoint a secretary.
All right, thank you so much for doing that. Thank you, commissioners, for your vote of confidence. We shall carry on as normal. We're going to go ahead and appoint Mrs. Thornton as our secretary, and we recognize that Ms. Newman will be helping her in her absence. At this time,
Actually, Mr.
before we
Chair,
do anything else,
Ms. Thornton
go
has
ahead.
Ms. Thornton is back. She's on screen now.
She's back. Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Thornton, you are the secretary of the Planning Commission.
Are you sure? I'm glad to.
I am right now. I am.
Okay, all right. I'll
I am right now.
gladly do
All
that.
right. I appreciate that. Moving on to a point of dedication and remembrance, would actually just take a moment of silence in remembrance of Supervisor S.T.O. Goodwin, who succumbed to his illness here recently, and was his funeral and interment was yesterday. I would just ask everybody to just take a moment of silence in remembrance of his over 13 years worth of work in Orange County government. Thank you. Appreciate it. And if any of Mr. Goodwin's families watching in, we certainly send, and if they're not watching, we'll also send our sympathy out to you from the entire commission today. I guess we kind of got the cart before the horse, so let's approve the agenda. We've already altered it by putting in the selection of chairman, but can we approve it as it's stated now to go forward?
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Chairman, do we need just to, for the record, amend the agenda? Just, I'm just asking. I don't want to miss something.
Well, it's not going to hurt to amend it. So the approval could be with, if Mr. Hudson would do it and Mr. Yancey would agree, that the approval could be with already previous amended format.
To make it a matter of record, I'll make the motion as amended to include the nomination of officers.
My second stands.
Okay. Okay. With that said, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition has likewise passed unanimously. Thank you so much. The approval of the minutes of the last meeting is there, December the 3rd regular meeting. If we could do that, that would be appreciated also.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from December 3rd
I'll second.
as presented.
It's been moved and second as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition likewise, it approves unanimously. We have no new business that I know of. We do have a public hearing scheduled. Are you prepared, Mrs. Thornton, to move forward on this? Sandra?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, sir,
That's
I am
fine.
prepared. I didn't do any additional staff comments beyond what was in your December 3rd meeting package. And you do have 3 sets of comments that we received on this matter.
Okay, let me get it open. You can go to that. I just want to make sure you were there. This is a public hearing. It's a continuation of ZTA 20-02. The Orange County Planning Board of Supervisors has proposed to amend section, I think it's the Orange County Board of Supervisors, planning should be out of there, has proposed to amend section 70-646 of the Orange County zoning ordinance to reduce the required setback of the right of way of Constitution Highway VA Route 20 between Hardwick Mountain Drive and Maud's Lane in the Barbersville vicinity from 300 feet to 150 feet. We would ask that Mrs. Thornton, she has that information to give it to us. Behind that, I would ask that we would note that we do have some public comments. And then behind that, I would ask Mr. Johnson, since he represents the board, if he has anything to say before we go any further in that order, if that's acceptable. Okay, thank you. Ms. Thornton, go ahead.
Okay, well, the proposed text amendment as drafted would be an amendment to section 70-646 primary highways subsection 5, which, if amended, would read as follows. Constitution Highway, Virginia Route 20, south of the town of Orange and north of Spotswood Trail, US Route 33 in Barbersville, 300 feet, except that between Hardwick Mountain Drive and Maud's Lane, the minimum required setback shall be 150 feet. And just to review the comments that had been provided previously, the segment of Constitution Highway for which the setback reduction is proposed lies outside the Barbersville Village Overlay District and is less than 1 mile in length. As may be noted on the map, which had been previously provided, and as measured in the Orange County Geographic Information System, application of a 300-foot setback on a number of the small existing lots, particularly on the northwest side of Route 20, but also on the southeast side, would completely eliminate any buildable area on the lot. In some cases, the 300-foot setback includes the entire parcel and extends to an adjacent parcel. Along this segment of Route 20, there are at least 10 existing non-conforming parcels with respect to area under current zoning. A reduction in the setback would reduce the instances in which a variance would be required for construction. Moreover, it could be argued that this situation is one that is of so general or recurring a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation to be adopted as an amendment to the ordinance. And that is a reference to Virginia Code Section 15.2-2309.2.
Okay. Can you state the addresses and names of the letters that we had? And we're not going to read them, but they'll come into record.
I will need to look those up. I don't have that in front of me, but I'll be glad to look it up.
I got them, so I can state them if I think I do. I know I do. So we have one letter from Randy and Grimes and his wife Diane, and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I do have those. I for some reason I thought you were asking which property owners received notification of this proposed text amendment, and I apologize.
No.
I do have the comments.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I do have the comments that were received.
Right. Just state the names and the addresses, and we don't have to go into the content because the letter's already there.
Okay. A letter from Randy Grimes dated December 28th, 2020. His address is 15381 Willow Spring Road, Orange. And they are also property owners on Blue Ridge Turnpike in Somerset. A letter dated December 30th from Robin Kennard Lovett of 9471 Little Skyline Drive, Orange, Virginia. And an email dated December 30th from Theodosia L. Munford, 8805 Junaluska Terrace, Clinton, Maryland. She's the decedent of a property owner who did own property on Constitution Highway, lot 54-6.
Okay. Do you have anything else?
No, sir, I don't.
Mr. Johnson, do you have any comments at this time, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, very briefly. I don't think it makes any real sense to go back over earlier comments that I made at the meeting several weeks ago. I've given a lot of thought to this, and so I wanted to talk about a couple of those thoughts very briefly. There has been I think an understandable concern voiced about the fact that we are addressing this stretch of road, but we're not addressing other stretches of road. And I would say that that's kind of the nature of government. It's very difficult to address everything at one time. And for instance, when someone comes to us and asks for a special use permit or a zoning change on their property, that is a change that's being done for that one person. It's not helping anybody else. Maybe indirectly, but it's certainly not directly helping anyone else. So it's a common thing that the county, when it makes zoning decisions, it's dealing kind of one at a time. If Frank wants to have a garage on his property and he needs an SUP, he comes and applies for it. If Bill 5 miles away wants to have a garage on his property, he has an SUP and he comes and files for it. So kind of the nature of zoning is we kind of deal with it as we go along. And in this case, we're at least dealing with a stretch of road that's a mile long and has a number of small property owners. So I put that out there just kind of as a thought that I had as a way to kind of put this in context. The other issue is the non-conforming part. Our primary roads are filled with non-conforming properties because houses built before about 1970 tended to be close to the road. And so there's non-conforming lots all over. So the non-conforming part is not really the point. It's that in this particular case, it's the road has an unusually wide setback. And so we're dealing with a little different situation than say Route 20 that has a 100-foot setback, and maybe there's a house that's 80 feet from the road and it's non-conforming. And finally, the last thing I would say is just, as a supervisor, I kind of react to these things as they come to me. No one else has come to me about building setbacks, at least not recently, and certainly not along this corridor. There was a gentleman who lived closer to the town of Orange a couple of years ago, and his problem was he wanted to add on to the back of his house. And because he was within this 300-foot setback, he wanted to do I don't remember the exact amounts. He wanted to do a 1,600-foot expansion, and he was limited to a 900-foot expansion. And so we actually, at that point, went in, you all acted on it, and then the board acted on it, where we, at least I believe that came before the planning commission, where we actually increased the size of what you could do to a non-conforming structure, as long as it didn't become more non-conforming. So I simply offer that up is that we, I and we as the local government, we kind of deal with these things as they come to us, as we're made aware of them. And there isn't any favoritism here. It's just, to an extent, it's the squeaky wheel that gets attention paid to it. Anybody else along the corridor or any other corridor who feels that they're in an analogous situation, I'd be happy to talk with them.
Okay, tonight we're going to do something just a little bit odd, you might think. We're not going to start at District 1, we're going to start at District 5, and since it's in that district, and let them finish up. But if anybody has any questions for the county, meaning Sandra or Mr. Johnson, they can go ahead at this time, or they can wait till their time when we call them out. But we're going to start at District 5. So we can get our thoughts together there. Any real earth-shattering questions we got to get answered now, or can we wait till we get called? Okay, Mr. Hutchinson, you go ahead with any questions you may have, any comments you want to make.
I have none.
Okay. Mrs. Olmaker, do you have any?
I don't.
Okay. So it gets down to me. I do have not necessarily a question, but a comment. Mr. Grimes' letter was well written out and well spelled out his positioning on it, and it created a considerable amount of thought and things like that for me. And I hear what he's saying. Also, the Levitt letter, when they have a piece of property that apparently they got from the county and can't do anything with it, that one sparked my attention also, because I don't think government should be a hindrance to anyone, if at all possible. And then the third letter we got to address the letters to make sure they know that I have read them and others have too, about the situation at their hand, that the setback is something they would be favorable to. I think Mr. Johnson kind of put it in its proper place. We're addressing an issue that was brought to us by particular people for a particular incident. And while it's not just that piece of property, it's others, it's best we take it like it has come before us. I've done some research on some things. It's not spot zoning. It may appear to be that, but it's not spot zoning based on what I can determine from legal advice and other things that there. But I will say what it does do. It tells us that sometimes that when we as a government do things, unintentional consequences may happen. And this is what I know about this property on the research of what I did. This property was in place with a home on it prior to any written zoning ordinances, overlays, anything in that area or quarter. It was a property and a house there while it was an overlay zoning and setbacks were in place. If you go way back on the property, Route 20 expanded, for best I could determine, maybe as much as 3 times since they owned that property, which encroached upon their property, which takes some footage away. So I guess where I'm at is that we may be correcting a couple things for one individual property, but we may be correcting some things for that area in general. And it does not disturb the view shed, because actually they're going to put back what was already there. Nobody's asking for anything new. They're just asking to put back what was there. And that's kind of where I'm at on it. And that's my comment up until this point. Mr. Yancey, your time.
You're muted.
Yes.
I'm
Mr.
not
Yancey?
going to belabor my comments based on the comments and justification I thought I gave at the last meeting. I too think Mr. Grimes has a valid point with the property he has. It is quasi spot zoning in my book based on my interpretation of several things that were taught in the commissioner class that I attended through Virginia Tech. The other issue is really one of property rights, and we're granting an advantage to a group of property owners, which I don't begrudge in any manner or form, that other citizens of the County of Orange do not enjoy. I would like to see this commission allow a delay in passing this proposal by having our Director of Planning give us an analysis of the number of properties in each district that would be impacted if we all made this county-wide. To me, that is fair to the other constituents in the other districts and really does not jeopardize these folks in Mr. Johnson's district. And Mr. Johnson's points are well taken, and I'm not going to respond to that in a negative means. That is my summation, and I appreciate the opportunity for you all to listen to my comments and requests.
Mr. Yancey, before I go on, I just didn't quite my Wi-Fi's not good tonight. Say what you're requesting again, just so I know what you requested.
Back when this ordinance was put on the book, first of all, the Planning Commission and the Planning Department, I don't believe a GIS system existed back in those days. So therefore, they had a heck of a effort to determine how many properties would be impacted by the ordinance, and therefore they were at somewhat of a disadvantage. I don't know the particulars behind it. To be honest, really don't care. That's water over the dam that we can't make up or do anything about. But right now we've got a thing in front of us that we can do something about, and that is take it under advisement and study and allow the director of planning to get someone in the GIS area to determine how many properties by district would it be impacted if we implemented this ordinance countywide.
Okay, thank you. I understand now. Mr. Capel?
So as I said before, I appreciated Mr. Johnson's explanation, and I tended to agree. And if you would remember, I also had a lengthy discussion about how we might address individual homeowners. And there are ways to address the issues that individual homeowners have that were existing when this was put in place. And so there is a means to do that. And, that doesn't involve the setbacks. And two other things I'd like to add. We reduced the setbacks in Barboursville greatly. That was coupled with design standards and zoning ordinances and other measures. And so, I'm happy to have those discussions. If we want to couple it with other things. I see Albemarle County mentioned here. Hey, I'd love to talk about adopting some of Albemarle County's zoning practices. Let's have that discussion in concert with this. Part of the reason Albemarle has the setbacks they have is because they have the zoning in place. So I'm very sympathetic to the homeowners who were in place that were affected by this. And I laid out a couple ways, and we all agreed there were a couple ways we could address that. What I consistently don't hear is addressing the other issues of zoning and how that affects taxes and how that affects a lot of other things. I've been a pretty consistent voice on this planning commission about addressing by right division, addressing aligning the comprehensive plan with our zoning. And I've been told more than once that we would do that, and we don't get there. And so, if we want to have this broader discussion, let's have the broader discussion. I think it would be a great idea. But I don't like the idea because the other flip side of this is there's a lot of undeveloped property in these corridors. And we really don't have any way to deal with that. And it would absolutely devastate some of the view sheds in the area. And one last concept, I hear property rights, I get it. I'm totally in favor of property rights. But I think we would all agree that property with access, frontage on roads is more valuable than property that doesn't have frontage. Well, those roads are paid for by taxpayers. Those are public roads. And so the value of that property and the use of that property hinges on the provision of public access. And so that has to be considered, as part of this property rights thing. It's not just a one-way street. And I consistently hear just the one-way street. We don't want to address zoning. We don't want to do anything about by right. but we want to get rid of every other way that we have of preserving some of the things that are unique to this county. So, so again, I think it'd be great to have a broader discussion. There's a whole bunch of things in this county that are going to impact all of us. This right now, we're dealing with a migration from the cities into Orange County. And we've talked about this for a long time, and there's stuff being built everywhere, and that is going to impact all of us. And so I'm all for it. You want to have a broader discussion on some of these issues, let's do it. But let's just not limit it to one point of view. Let's expand it to encompass what we know lots of people in this county care about, property rights and other things. And let's have a balanced discussion about it. I'd be happy to do that. But on this issue, I think we should just, it's constricted, it's limited, it serves a specific person, I'm sorry, that was a complete specific purpose. And so I would advocate that we limit this issue to just what's on the table before us. And if we want to have broader discussions, let's have broader discussions, but let's not just limit it to one narrow point of view. Thank you.
Okay, we've been through all the commissioners. Is there any other commissioner that has anything else they want to add to this? Ms. Thornton, is there anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Mr. Johnson, is there anything else you need to add?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lansing, is there anything you want to tell us from a legal perspective?
If there are any specific questions, I'm happy to take them, but otherwise, no.
Okay, so then I will solicit a motion up or down, and for further discussion, if we want to do it, or for approval or denial at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chairman.
It's been moved and second that we approve it as presented. Ms. Thornton, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Mr. Capel? Oh,
Aye.
sorry.
So that's okay. I was on mute. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Aye.
I thought I was. Okay. Mr. Yancey?
Yay.
Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
Ms. Zellmaker?
Aye.
Mr. Hutchison?
Aye.
Okay, the motion to recommend approval carries 4-1.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you, commissioners, and the county officials and attorney for the hard work. We got a little work session here now on the potential calendar application. Does everybody receive that calendar?
Yes.
Or potential calendar? I will say on the onset that I appreciate the work that they did for the calendar. It proved itself out, in my opinion, to be very helpful. Is there any comments on it, any improvements that we can do, or any questions about it? And Ms. Thornton, before we get all that, you may want to take 30 seconds or more, just kind of once over what you're trying to accomplish here. Well, I'll take that back, what you accomplished here.
Okay, and I did have one thing that I did want to make note of as well before you begin your discussion. We had well, it goes back a few months now, some discussion about the potential utility of having an actual application deadline calendar. I'm not sure. I guess possibly at some point the county did have such. I'm not certain. But it certainly, would serve the purpose of letting potential applicants know what kinds of timeframes they need to expect in terms of the review process, and just the amount of time that would be required to have to get through that process, to get to the point of scheduling a public hearing before the Planning Commission. One thing that I did want to make note of that it slipped my mind until today, I think that when this is put in its final form, we do need to add a note that indicates that for Germano Wilderness Area rezoning applications, there is another step before the Planning Commission hearing is actually scheduled, and that's the work session step. So there needs to be acknowledgement that for those particular rezoning applications, it is going to be a little bit longer a process for those. But I think that that the main thing was to let everybody know, these are when we need applications in order to potentially get to a public hearing on this particular date. Now, I would say that the way this is set up, assumes that there aren't major problems, with a submittal, so that you see there's a note added that if an application during that 10-day completeness review, if an application is deemed to be incomplete, an applicant has 90 days to supply any missing information. If, as a result of the application review committee process, there are, significant comments that need to be addressed prior to an application coming to the commission for consideration, that means that they wouldn't necessarily, get to hearing on the date that is anticipated. But that's the reason for the note that says matters will be scheduled, assuming that the comments have been addressed as may be necessary. I mean, I think it could happen that one would have to go back and do some significant revision. So, this calendar sort of represents kind of the perfect world, I guess you could say, that the applications are complete when we get them and have no major problems with them.
Any questions for Mrs. Thornton?
Just one quick
Okay.
one. So,
Go ahead. Sure.
Go ahead.
yeah, thank
Mr.
you.
Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, was George talking too? You want to go
Yeah.
first, George?
I'm sorry, my bad.
You want me to go or you want to
Go
go?
ahead, Mr. DePaul.
You're welcome to
Mr.
go,
Yancey.
Jason.
Okay, great. Sandra, so did you say, so a couple things. What you had mentioned that maybe the GWAP work session, there should maybe be a note added for the GWAP work session, which makes sense to me, that should be notated on there, just because this part of this is just gauging the public's, expectation, like what, so I think that would be important to have on there, so they know what to expect. And then, so what's the next step for this? So, first of all, Sandra, thank you. You did a great job. So I forgot that part. But what happens next? Are we to approve this, or does this become part of our, Planning Commission official documents, or what? How do we instantiate this as not a policy, but as a document that we're to follow?
I have to confess, I didn't review the bylaws in advance of this discussion. I don't know, and maybe Eric or another one of the commissioners may be able to shed some light. I don't know whether it requires some sort of formal adoption, or if it's just something we are able to say, this is how we're going to operate, just to let everyone know. I mean, it's other than to have dates in place that helps to, as Mr. Capel mentioned, I think helps to shape expectations. It's not really doing anything different than what our ordinance requires us to do in terms of processing. So I don't know whether it requires any particular formal action or not.
Well, let us take that up in just a second. Go ahead, Mr. Yancey.
My point, and thank you, Sandra, for doing all this work. It's really good. I think it's a really a yeoman's job. Mine is a legal question more than technical. I believe the bylaws say that we are required to have a second commission meeting on the third Thursday of the month if required. So my question is, if we publicize this, should we not note that? And number two, does that then have an impact on the dates for the public notice period noted?
Well, just to respond to the first part, you are right. Any sort of published meeting schedule does need to acknowledge that there is a third, that third Thursday is designated as may be needed. You know, in terms of how that impacts public notices, you know, I think that, and Eric may want to respond to this. I mean, unless you establish, you know, sort of as standing practice, you know, a meeting on that third Thursday, I mean, I think we would need to operate on the assumption that you're only meeting once a month.
Agreed.
Well, and I think we can put a notation, if I'm not mistaken, in there that just basically says, if an emergency comes up, whatever it may be, because of something that we would go to, or that second meeting we would go to, we could use that, and those dates would be altered. But the preference here is to stick with this guideline, and that second meeting can be for a sundry of things. Doesn't have to be for these type things. It can be for housekeeping issues, work sessions on different things that may hit us. For example, somebody spoke about zoning and subdivisions. That could be done on that third meeting. It has nothing to do with this panel. They're here. Also, solar, I heard in a meeting that we need to get some info on. So I think we should work on the assumptions that we're always going to have that first Thursday, and this calendar follows that guideline. And that second meeting is for emergencies and or supplemental workshops and things we need. And to get to how we get it into place, if Mr. Forhey is agreeable with it, I think then it gets into place. I mean, if he doesn't have a problem, we shouldn't have a problem. It's just all we did is put in writing what's happening or what should be happening. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. And I don't know. I mean, yeah, we can run it by him. I don't know that
he may not care.
And I don't know that the board has to you know, bless it in any way. I don't, Mr. Johnson, does this seem to be something that you think the board needs to look at?
I'm gonna plead that I need to look at it some more and think about it some more. I think this is a personal opinion, and obviously I don't speak for the rest of the board. As long as this is sort of an internal, you know, how the planning commission handles this, then I don't think that is really something the board is going to be concerned about. The only concern would be if this in any way affects, you know, applicants and in some way affects that process, then probably the board would want to take a look at it. But I'm not, I do better if I can read something, and I haven't really read through this yet. So I'm going to plead, not doing my homework in this instance. So I'd want to think about it some more. Okay.
As I said, the way, and just, I had think I had in my transmittal email, and I do want to acknowledge before I say anything else. I mean, this was kind of a joint effort between Tracy and myself, so she was involved as well. The way I did it basically was to take the legal ad, well, the Planning Commission hearing date, the first Thursday of the month, then back up to the legal ad date. And then I've kind of backed up from there with allowing a week between the application review committee deadline, a week for applicants to look at comments. And then, before an ad needed to be published on dates when, there were Monday holidays that appeared likely to affect my legal ad submission date. I kind of made some adjustments for that. So I just kind of backed up from the hearing date to the legal ad submission time, then back, just count it back, the days to get to the recommended submission date. So it was, as I said, the completeness review deadline is intended to be 10 business days from the submission date. The application review committee deadline, 45 business days from the completeness review date. So as I said, it does reflect what our ordinance provides.
If I can just jump in, looking at what Sandra and Tracy have put together, this looks to me like just essentially housekeeping rules for the commission and for the planning department. So I don't see this as something that would have to be treated with the level of formality that some of our ordinances, for example, might. And I think it's sufficient if the commission wanted to do so, to simply take a vote on it as a motion, and then for the vote to be reflected in the minutes. Now, obviously, if the board felt differently and wanted to elevate the level of formality to it, then it certainly that's within their discretion.
So Eric, I
hearing all
look at
that,
this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
you're fine. Go ahead, Hutch.
Yeah, I look at this as a general in-house working schedule that conforms with our ordinances, that provides a convenience to the citizens in doing their applications.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing formal. I mean, if there's an exception, we deal with the
Right.
exceptions.
That's right. And it's not like this is even exactly a fully binding document that as though we're writing something in stone. For example, if the commission wanted to meet on the third Thursday of a month, for example, it wouldn't have to revise this document in order to do so.
Right. My guidance, Sandra, is going to be this, and
I'm sorry, Donald.
Sandra, my guidance is going to be this, Sandra. Run it by Mr. Voorhees. If he doesn't have any objection or doesn't think it needs to go to the board, then let it stay in place. I would just make sure he's aware of the schedule we're using. So if he's questioned, he would know what we're doing and how the format works. But I wouldn't turn it into some ironclad. I don't even think we need a motion for it. I think this is a working template. It's just like you went up and put down the meeting dates for us. That's because it's written out what it is. And these are the things that work beneath those meeting dates. So I say work well done. Let's not turn it into an issue and move on. If Ted's happy, we're happy. All right. And if he's not happy, let us know. Then we might negotiate with him.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a follow-up comment? Yeah,
Sure.
I've actually, as you all were talking, I went over it. I don't see any problem with it at all. I think it's a document that would be nice to be copied to the board so everybody knows about it. But it doesn't, I don't think this is just kind of, this is how we do business. And it's, I think, as you said, it's really just putting down on paper what we're already doing.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to move beyond that point. I will say that, again, hats off to you for good work. We appreciate that. There appears to be any no old business. We're moving along pretty good tonight, and I'm not going to slow it down. Mr. Johnson, you have a supervisor's report?
I want to just briefly thank the commission for passing forward the item from earlier, and also thank the commission for the moment of silence for my colleague Teal Goodwin. He will be greatly missed, and we'll move forward, but it will be with a heavy heart.
Thank you. Mrs. Thornton, do you have anything?
Just a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. We did include in your package an adjacent property owner letter that was received from the Greene County Planning Department concerning a matter that will be on their Planning Commission hearing agenda on Wednesday, January 20th. I can't say that in my tenure with Orange, we have received such a letter, but I did want to pass this along for your information. I guess it's a request to amend proffers on a rezoning. So that was an informational item we provided. We do have coming up on Friday, January 15, is the application review committee deadline for two matters: a special use permit for a small solar installation, and also, I believe I mentioned these at your December meeting, for a residential treatment center sponsored by Mountain View Community Church. So we, as I said, we're the application review committee review period is still open on those matters. If there aren't substantial comments that need to be addressed, we would expect those to be on your February hearing agenda. I do want to mention that I believe that finalists for the new community development director position, finalist interviews are scheduled for next week. So that process is progressing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner comments, we're going to start with District 1, Mr. Capel.
Don't have any comments except to say I hope everyone has a great new year, and my sincere condolences to the Goodwin family. It's quite a loss, and hope his family endures. That's all I have.
Mr. Yancey, District 2. Mr. Yancey, District 2.
I don't have any comments at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I don't have any further comments either. Ms. Zellmaker, District 4.
I don't have any further comment.
Mr. Hutchinson, District 5.
Wear the damn masks.
Okay. All right, we need a motion to adjourn if nothing else captures our attention.
So moved.
A second.
Removes our second. All right, moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carried unanimously. Good job, folks. Y'all have a good new year. Y'all got that done in 1 hour. Thank you so much.
All right. Good night.
Good night.